Thank you very much for keeping us company. We are heading straight into the interview segment, Engine Behind the Power. Tonight, I am joined by Tigania West Member of Parliament, John Mutunga. Thank you very much for coming to the program.
Thank you, Kabasa.
So many people, especially those who come from your region, they consider you to be one of those learned members of Parliament. We are going to get to those degrees and PhDs a little bit later on. But apart from the leader that you know, who is John Mutunga?
Well, who is John Mutunga? John Mutunga is son of Jacob Kianji Mutunga. My late father, who died last year, and my late mom, and I'm in Chilobi Mutunga. I was born in 1963. I believe my elder sisters were educated enough to know the date. I would say my parents picked it, but my sisters told me that it was on the 15th of November 1963, and we took that as law, because there was no dispute over it. And I was brought up in the villages. In Tigania. Tigania is one of the sub-counties of Meru. There are 6 sub-counties. I was born at a place called Kianjai. And Kianjai is one of the 5 wards of Tigania West constituency. So I went to school. Early schooling, I did my nursery school, where I went for only 1 term in Kianjai Primary School. So I went to Kianjai Nursery School, and then Mutunga Primary School was being set up. It started in 1971, and I was one of the pioneer students in Standard 1. So I started in Standard 1, went up to Standard 7, did my my CPE then. There was no KCPE, it was CPE, Certificate of Primary Education. And I passed. It's not that I didn't know which school to choose when we were choosing schools, because I was not quite enlightened in terms of that. But I had a friend of mine discussing with a teacher, and they were saying Chogoria Boys High School is a good school. So I thought Chogoria should be my first school. I chose Chogoria, I went to Chogoria, and I did my secondary education in Chogoria, Chogoria Boys. Chogoria Boys is in Meru. Right now it's in Meru, in Tarakaniti.
Yes.
That time it was a Greater Meru. We used to call it Meru South. And after Form 4, I went to Nyeri High School for my Form 5 and 6, where I did my, my Kenya Advanced Secondary Education Examination in 1983. And of course, we had a lapse of about 1.5 hours or so. I went to teach. I was lucky to be one of those identified to teach in a secondary school, and I taught mathematics and chemistry. Especially, I liked chemistry a lot, and the maths, of course. And in that school, I found that it was one of the schools we used to call Arambi Secondary School, and it's like now what we are calling day secondary schools. It's called St. Luke's Secondary School. The principal then, we used to call them headmaster, assigned me to teach mathematics. I found the boys really poor in maths, and I took it upon myself to really make sure that they understood what maths is. I'm sure I made an impact in maths and the other sciences that I taught. I remember they never used to get anything better than 8 past 8. That was what the best child could get. But by the time I left in about 1.5 years, 2 years, and coached Form 4s, and I got a credit 3. There used to be distinction 1 and 2, then some credits and so on. And then, so I got that. And some of those boys now are very senior in the Kenyan economy. They are leaders in the industries, and they're doing extremely well.
Sorry to cut you short, but most of Kenyans do not know that however simple an act is, it's part of giving back.
Yeah, it is.
And the fact that you can watch someone grow through your guidance, nothing makes you happier.
Actually, they nicknamed me Savior because I saved them. Not that I'm claiming to be Jesus, because I can't. to be blasphemous in the first place, and I'm a stout Christian. I wouldn't go that direction. They called me Savior. That was my name. I saved them in maths and in a bit of the other sciences that I taught, but I liked maths a lot, so I taught them that. Then I went to university. Before university, of course, I went to the National Youth Service, and being tall and active, and having been in the best company, it was called Kifaru that time. Kifaru was the best company, and I was the right marker. The right marker was the most industrious and tallest person in the company. So we did extra training, and I learned the best company out of the parent, which means I learned the entire parent out, 2,550 of us. So we graduated, and then we went to the university. I did a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. I liked agriculture a lot because I grew up in a farm family, and my father used to be one of the demonstration farmers, the Lind farmers. And I realized that throughout his life, we never learned anything. We used to prepare the land for agriculture, and then we could do our own things on the rest of the farm. So I was curious to find out how can we reduce labor in agriculture itself so that it becomes less laborious. And I thought taking agriculture as a course was a good idea. So I did. And I graduated, I think, it was 1988. That time we used to be posted from college. So I was posted to initially Undani. And according to what my friends told me, that if you go to Coast Province as a young man, you'll never come back. So I didn't want not to come back. I knew I had aging parents to take care of, I had my siblings to think about, and my life too. So what I did is I requested for a transfer to either Central Kenya or Eastern Province.
That's after reporting to work, or you wrote
before I reported. We had some window of opportunity to request for a change of transfer. So that time I remember I met a Mr. Amiani in charge of posting that time. And Mr. Amiani looked at me and told me, young man, you want to go to Central Kenya, you just want to live around Nairobi, I'll send you to Eastern Province. And he sent me to Meru. He didn't know that.
He didn't know you
I came from Meru. So what I did, I told Amiani, please let me not go to Meru, let me go to Marsabit or Isiolo. So he sent me to Isiolo.
Wow. And
then I did my first 3 years in Isiolo. I was in charge of animal production in the district. I covered the entire Isiolo. It is ASAL. ASAL means arid and semi-arid. We used to go for as many as 22 days out there to do extension, to train farmers on what they need to do, on livestock keeping. I learned a lot of range management, which was really new for me. And then after that, I was promoted. You started at Animal Production Officer 2, so I became an Animal Production Officer 1, and I was promoted to become in charge of livestock extension in Nyandarua. So I went to Nyandarua district, and I served for about 3 years. And then while I was in Isiolo, of course, I got married. And I got married to my high school fiancée. She's called Sheila.
A typical love story. And then, of course, Kenya has gone through so much in terms of agriculture. We have seen technology being used in agriculture. We've seen the difference that it makes. But back then, if you compare what we have today and what you were dealing with back in the days, how big of a difference is it?
I think that time agriculture was better organized. It was more targeted towards training the farmers to produce better, to produce more effectively. There was sufficient coverage in terms of staff numbers and the technology. The technology transfer aspect was better than today. Why am I saying this? Because there has been diminishing number of extension officers across the board. There has been a reduction in number of extension officers. We have had losses through natural attrition, and there has not been commensurate replacement. So people have just left, either retiring or, of course, changing career or improving on their, capacities and leaving the sector or even dying. And then they have not been effectively replaced. There has not been replacement. This happened sometimes back in 1997, 98, through the structural adjustment program, when the World Bank and IMF did dictate to the developing countries that they have to rationalize in terms of the number of staff members they're going to have in some of those sectors, and therefore employment was capped, and the governments, states and government, and to decide how many people they are going to employ and so on. So agriculture is one of the most affected in the country, and I think it's a major mistake, because agriculture is the greatest supporter of this economy. It is #1 contributor to the GDP. Right now we are talking about 34% directly and about 27 or so percent indirectly. So really, it is the mainstay of the economy of this country, and it is the least recognized and supported by MSISO.
Okay. And then you did your PhD?
Yeah, really, I after about 5 years in Ndaro, I was promoted again. I went to Nakuru as the District Livestock Production Officer, and then after that, I thought I had been applying for a scholarship, government scholarship, but I didn't get it. So after about 12 years of service in the government, I now decided to go back to school. I did my master's. I did a master of arts in development sociology, and I majored in advanced disaster management. And then immediately I enrolled for PhD. I did my master's in University of Nairobi as I did the bachelor's, and then I registered for PhD in KU. I did my PhD in what I may call Anglo environmental sciences. It's Anglo because I did my thesis on the socio-economic empowerment of smallholder farmers. But then I majored on the utilization of biogeophysical resources. And biogeophysical, in this case, I looked at the environmental resources in terms of the biological resources, the physical resources, and the geographical resources. So I married the two and linked up and showed that smallholder farmers can actually be empowered.
So how did you find yourself in politics? Because clearly you were doing so well for yourself.
Actually, as I left for studies, I identified a job in private sector and left public sector for private sector. I grew up in that institution to become the CEO, and I served as a CEO for about 14 years. And I was very comfortable. However, there is a call that comes sometimes. My people wanted me to go back and serve them for some time. I tried that in 2013, and I did not go all the way because I had unfinished business in my former organization. So what I did is that I requested them to give me 5 years, and I could go back and try to serve them for a few years. I did development advisory across Africa. I did work in many countries, 16 countries in Africa. I was offering advisory services to institutions, to formations, even to governments. And I remember I set up, in the post-independent South Africa, I set up the agricultural system in southwestern African Cape Province. It's called West Cape, Western Cape Province. So through this, I gained a lot of experience, and I was actually getting a lot of, assignments across the domain of agriculture. And I was also teaching at the university. I enrolled as a lecturer, and I could do part-time lecturing in some of the universities. I taught in KU, I taught in JKUAT, and even in the cooperative college before they became a fully fledged university. And I was also a member of the council, University Council of Kemu, and also a member of the Board of Trustees and so on. So I did many things. But then I found myself thinking about my people a lot more because I had done a lot of development, and I could see it working. There were the small things we were doing, and they could work very well in Zambia, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in many other African countries, and also had a lot of experience in the Eastern world, the Far East, and also in Europe. So I thought I could apply some of these principles to our people for some time. And so I offered to actually take up politics, because I knew the only way you can bring your people together to think and reason with you is through politics. It's only one person in a constituency who would call people to a thought process, and that's the politician.
And we are counting years now from 2017.
Yeah.
And of course, your development track record will be used to judge you when you decide to seek another term in office. But In terms of food security, and speaking of Tigania West and the whole of Meru County, are we food secure?
Well, if you ask any Kenyan who doesn't come from Meru, whether Meru is food secure, they'll tell you yes. Because of the effects of the mountain, there are two ranges. There's the Mount Kenya itself, the Nyambene ranges, and the two of them are really potential in terms of agriculture. But there are the lowlands also to think about, and the Northern Frontier District. You know, the Northern Frontier is where we used to do grazing. It's purely a rangeland. It's just like Isiolo, there's no difference. Tigania West happens to be this kind of agroecology. From the tarmac road going down to Isiolo, that's a very insecure, food insecure countryside, if we may say so. Then the other side, the upper part of Tigania, the Miadene area, and then the Kideo and so on. Those ones are high potential, and then the lowland are medium potential, where we talk about the Nkomo and the Kideo, the Mbeya ward. So the idea is that Tigania West is fairly food insecure. Part of it actually is under the regular feeding program, and we've been pushing for this because we realize that schools near Isiolo, because Isiolo airport is 85% in Tigania. Right. So because Tigania borders Isiolo, Tigania West borders Isiolo town, and when they were doing the airport, they got in and they compensated the people who are living around that area, and therefore they built the airport. So most of the airport is in our land, so which means therefore the agroecology of Tigania West is the same as the Isiolo agroecology. So we've been negotiating for the government to consider Tigania West to be one of the endemic areas that need to be considered, especially on famine relief, and therefore it's not really we cannot say it is food secure. In most cases, like for the last 2 seasons, since April last year, we did not have rain in some parts of Tigania. And this is the time we have sufficient rains, and we are happy that at least we have that.
We are really pressed for time, but 2 things as we wind up. In less than a minute, if we can. The BBI, the report is not yet out, but we have seen a number of your colleagues coming out, piling pressure on the task force to draw a favorable report.
Okay.
In less than a minute, what is your take on this?
BBI is under discussion because it's still concealed. It's a concealed document, and it has been hyped a lot, and everybody believes that it bears some influence on the direction politics will take and development paradigms will change into in the Kenyan economy. That's the reason why people are talking about BBI, which they don't know about. And I'm sure even you in the media are flashing out some of the ideas which we don't know whether they are correct, whether they're anchored in BBI or not. So we are saying that BBI, we need to see the report and read it.
All right. And finally, is Parliament and the Executive headed towards a coalition course over the interest rates capping?
Well, I'll tell you one thing for sure. There has been a bit of changes in the way laws are made in this country. And whenever Parliament is the institution, Senate and the National Assembly at the national level that is mandated to make laws for this country. Unfortunately, we have seen a bit of executive interference. And we have seen that sometimes the president does send memos to the Parliament, and it prescribes the way the legislation will look like. In our very in my very concerned opinion, I think what the president should do is send a memo and generally guide the Parliament to think through issues and not amend the legislation from State House. Well, that is wrong. So in this particular case, the Parliament is fully united because politics are local. Elections are local. We are representing our people. We know about interest capping. It affects the Kenyans. That legislation went through what is called the public participation, and what comes from State House does not have public participation.
I know the message will come to Parliament. Of course, the Speaker will read it. I don't know why he's still holding on to it, but we are waiting to cover it as well. But thank you very much for coming to the program, Honorable John Mutunga.
Thank you too.
All right, and we are taking a short break, of course. Yes, I am on this camera. Thank you. We are taking a short break, but when we come back, business news. Asante sana.